After Leah gave birth to black triplets, her life came to a complete stop. Her spouse didn't want to talk to her after she was ejected from her home, but 10 years later, an unexpected event occurred. Welcome to Amazing Truth Channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new. Now go to the story. Workers not working were congregated to observe the chaos occurring at the front door. Jonas, a male, kept taking bags out of his car and throwing them against the fence. Security guards approached him politely, clearly incensed, and asked him to cease whatever he was doing, but he responded as though they were invisible shadows. They attempted to speak with him in a calm manner, but he was unresponsive. He swung madly, punching one of them before they all took him to the ground, when they eventually had to hold him back. Once he was forced to the floor, he told them a terrifying story. He revealed to them how his wife Leah had cheated on him and attempted to blame him for the pregnancy of another guy. It was incomprehensible that she gave birth to black children when both she and he were white. Not one, she was a mother of triplets. He angrily yelled at them, declaring his end to the foolish union. Leah owned the bags, and because he was unable to get them all to the hospital, she would need to come retrieve them all. The fact that she had recently given birth didn't matter to him. All he knew was that she had deeply damaged him, and he didn't want to be around her any longer. Jonas went to Leah's ward to find her after the security guards let him go. She was still in pain from giving delivery, and her mobility was restricted. She had no emotion at all as she stared at the wailing newborns all around her. He advised her to go back to the black man she had an affair with and never to come back to his home. Leah couldn't believe what she was hearing, so she just gazed at him as if he were a ghost. In actuality, he was ejecting her. Given that they were a white couple, she was aware that giving birth to 3 black children was unusual. When the infants were born and Jonas saw they were black, he stormed out of the delivery room. This was earlier. Leah had thought they would hash things out when he got back. She was unaware that he had gone to fetch her belongings and let him take care of the triplets. There was nowhere else for her to go, so she pleaded with him not to leave her like that. She was a nursing mother, and it would be physically and emotionally taxing to take care of all the children without his help. But she was screamed upon to be quiet by Jonas. For all he cared, she and the children may burn in hell. After giving Leah one final sinister look, Jonas stormed out of her hospital room. She was having trouble thinking clearly that day. She tried calling Jonas many times, but he never answered. She texted him as well, but he never responded. He seemed to have completely cut her out of his life, and because she was confined to the hospital, there was very little she could accomplish. The only thing that could distract her from her problems was feeding and caring for her baby. She started to wonder again, though, as she glanced at them and noticed their dark complexion. Just the hue of her baby's skin had destroyed her marriage, and she knew that things would only become worse unless she figured out the secret. With nowhere else to turn, she contacted her mother Agatha, and the octogenarian arrived, as predicted. Agatha found it incomprehensible that something that might have been so happy should now have the potential to ruin a marriage. Nonetheless, she made the decision to remain silent because she was aware of Leah's struggles. First things first, ensuring that Leah's belongings were all properly cared for. After packing them all into her car, she took them to her own home. Later, she went back to the hospital to help Leah. Stressful enough, raising 1 child, but 3? She was aware that Leah was occupied. She also realized that Leah wasn't in the correct mental state to handle things on her own, so she decided to be there for her despite all of the problems with Jonas. She saw to it that Leah ate her meals at the appointed times, and that the infants were nursed when they were in need of nourishment. Agatha made sure the triplets were either sleeping or not making noise when Leah finally gave in to exhaustion and went to bed. Leah still found it hard to endure those first horrible days, even with her around. Leah struggled to move on after losing Jonas, since she was unable to stop crying for a considerable amount of time. She didn't understand why, when it came time for her to have a child, it had ended up ruining her marriage, as having a child was one of the nicest things that could happen to any relationship. She was unable to concentrate. Her mental health kept playing tricks on her, to the point where she was unable to even properly nurse the triplets. Her health started to suffer because she was so depressed. She got a rather high temperature that night. Luckily, the doctor got to work on her right away, and by morning, she was back to her old self. She still thought she could win Jonas's heart, even after everything he had done to her. She had no doubt that he would return to her once she discovered the truth. He was only behaving out of passion at the moment. She was certain that he would continue to adore her. Unfortunately, a few days later, she found out the truth about his sentiments. Leah's phone beeped next to her while she was changing one of her triplets' diapers, alerting her to an incoming message. It was an alert from her bank informing her that Jonas had emptied their joint account. She nearly went insane when she saw the message. Her savings were that. The majority of the money in the account had been added by her. Jonas seldom did, and when he did, it was usually insignificant. She'd always thought she had a greater say over that money. It had never occurred to her that he would follow her around and take her money in that way. At this time, she came to the realization that Jonas was actually trying to ruin her, and that it was getting to be too much. She was ejected from the residence by him. Even though he knew she needed the money, he had still taken it. It implied that he didn't give a damn about what happened to her, and she stopped giving a damn right there. She was only concerned about her children's welfare. She'd had enough of trying to win Jonas around to her way. She reported the theft to the police over the phone. It was too late since every single cent had already been withdrawn out of the joint account. She would have also phoned the bank and urged them to freeze the account. As they searched for him, the police opened an inquiry, but they soon realized that finding him would not be simple. The day Jonas took the money from the joint account, he fled the state. He left the state. Consequently, they were unable to locate him and retrieve the pilfered funds. That was one of the worst times ever for Leah. She was always depressed as she considered what to do next. But no matter how long or how hard she tried to think of a solution, nothing seemed to work. Her life had been great only a week before, so it was difficult to comprehend that everything had completely changed in front of her eyes. She was at a loss over how to go with her life. Thank goodness, her mother saved the day. Her mother Agatha arrived to fetch her up from the hospital. At that point, Leah was recovered enough to be discharged from the hospital. After Agatha paid off all of her bills, the group moved into Agatha's apartment on the outskirts of the city. Leah experienced significant setbacks as a result of all that occurred, but she resisted letting it all get to her. She started looking for employment very immediately since she was determined to give her mother and children a life that was appropriate. Fortunately, she was hired shortly after, and although the salary wasn't great, it was plenty to get her started. In order to ensure that the triplets wouldn't struggle financially when they were old enough to go to school, Leah put in a lot of effort and started working double and triple shifts. They had found the ideal balance in their life and had managed to make it work somehow. However, like with nearly everything else wonderful in her life, it was short-lived. The triplets' lives were completely flipped upside down when they were 5 years old due to a sequence of events. Unusual and eerie tones began appearing throughout the home. The messages consistently had the same undertone, accusing her of being a cheat and threatening to punish her accordingly. The message frequently included detailed explanations of how she will pay. Leah could not get it to stop, no matter how hard she tried, which made it incredibly terrifying. She found a fresh, weird note every few days. She used to constantly receive them in the mail, but eventually she started finding them within the home. She often had the uneasy sense that someone had broken into her home when she got home from work. And sure enough, there would be a message beneath her pillow. She was frightened by this. She was aware that Jonas was solely to blame. He was finally emerging from the shadows to torture her after having succeeded in being hidden the entire while. She informed the police of everything because she would not allow him to feel that satisfaction. She told them about the letters, how she was afraid for her life, and how each one grew more menacing than the last. Unfortunately, there wasn't much they could do. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to locate Jonas. He was so skillfully concealed. He was still dodging the police, exactly as he had been 5 years prior. This was definitely not encouraging for Leah. She made sure that in the event of an attempted break-in, neighbors and law enforcement would be promptly notified by installing alarms and changing all of the locks on her mother's residence. Despite her concerns about Jonas, she made an effort to go back to her life. She was getting ready for a promotion at work, which would significantly raise their level of life. She concentrated on getting ready for the promotional interview while her mother watched the kids, and when it eventually came around, she did a fantastic job and was promoted. There was plenty to be happy about with this. She was relieved to finally get good news, since she knew that their financial difficulties were about to come to an end. When Leah arrived at the triplets' school that day to bring them up, one of them gave her a letter. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest, and her blood turned cold as soon as she noticed the message. She found it hard to believe. Jonas had been threatening her with the same note. Taking the note, she read it. It said the same thing as before, but this time it added that he would always be able to get her regardless of how hard she tried. Leah was shocked and inquired about how they obtained the message. They said that it was provided to them by an unfamiliar man. The guy instructed them to deliver it exclusively to her. Leah felt hot tears blur her vision and burn her eyes as she listened to them. She never imagined Jonas would become so remorseful that he would start chasing her kids. He still dared to pursue her children in spite of all he'd done to them. The more she considered it, the more afraid she got. When he'd come after her, she might have taken it easily, but with the kids involved, she couldn't stand it anymore. She was even more terrified since the cops still hadn't located him. She experienced a wide range of emotions that day as she attempted to come to terms with the direction her life had taken. She pondered how someone who had previously loved her could have injured her so badly. So much so that she cried uncontrollably, raged at the empty sky, and sighed 1,000 times. She then concluded that it was necessary to go to a different city in order to stop any dangers to her children. It was hard to move. Shortly after receiving the chance at a lifetime promotion, she was forced to resign. She couldn't do anything about it, even though it was incredibly unjust. Neither did her kids want to attend. The idea of leaving their classmates and their school behind was too much for them to handle. There, they cherished their lives. Leah, however, informed them that they were not allowed to remain there until everything was resolved. She had decided that their lives and well-being were more important than anything else, and that she needed to leave somewhere where Jonas would never find her, since she now knew he would stop at nothing to get her. They finally relocated to a new city. Together with Agatha, they were able to establish their new life there. She found the triplets a good job that fit their requirements and put them in a new school. They settled into the city gradually, and before long, Jonas and his offensive words were a thing of the past. Leah's only desire at this point was to go on with her life, and they did. Leah made the decision to throw the kids a party when they turned 10. It was a historic time since she was also celebrating their birthday, which proved that she had managed to keep everything together even after things had gone wrong for her years before. But as the birthday celebration was underway, the door opened and Jonas entered, looking tired. Leah looked at him, startled to her core. His appearance suggested that his transgressions had finally caught up with him and taken a serious toll on him. He instantly started pleading with her for pardon as soon as he saw her. He apologized to her and said he was willing to take the triplets as his kids. She almost believed she was being played for a joke because this was so unexpected, but she could see by the serious look on Jonas's face that he wasn't kidding. When she questioned him about what had made him decide otherwise, he gave her a terrifying story. The triplets were his. He'd always known that. His mother had pulled him aside and informed him about her affair with a black guy, which she had carried out while unaware that the children were black. Pregnancy was the result of an affair. Initially, she was afraid that having a child would reveal the affair, but Jonas appeared white at birth, and that he was also black would have gone unnoticed. She decided to carry the secret to her grave in order to preserve her face. But she told Jonas everything when she realized that the same secret was ruining their marriage. Sadly, Jonas showed little concern. He was unfazed by the fact that the children inherited his dark complexion. He told Leah he was seeing a female he met at work and had fallen out of love with her. The triplets provide him with the ideal excuse to end their relationship without raising any red flags. That was why he would not listen to her and would not budge on whatever she said. After splitting up with Leah, he moved in with his girlfriend and took her money. It was a huge mistake, though, since the girl had only been with him for the money, and as soon as it ran out, she ruthlessly abandoned him and went on. At that moment, he knew how precious Leah had been and how stupid it had been of him to let her go. When he finally located her at her mother's house, he was startled to see how well she was doing. That just made him more enraged, and out of envy, he started sending all those hurtful texts. Eventually, he tracked them down in the new town by visiting Agatha's former home and making some local contacts. When he was finished, he asked her to pardon him. He stated he'd been stupid back then, but he was ready to embrace his children now that he knew better. However, she declined him. She reminded him that when she was still breastfeeding the triplets, he had thrown her out. She told him how she pleaded for a chance, but he refused to give it to her, and how his notes scared her so much that she had to move. Then she declared that nothing would persuade her to give him back. It wasn't anything he deserved. With a forlorn expression, he left her location. She then phoned the police, who located him and placed him under custody. She could now relax knowing that he was under lock and key, and she carried on with her efforts to provide a decent life for her children and herself. She was aware that she would have to inform them about Jonas shortly, but she had faith that the appropriate moment would arrive. She was, however, prepared to make the most of her children's happiness in the meanwhile. What a lovely tale. Could anybody have imagined Jonas to be such a snake? In Leah's position, how would you have responded? Tell us in the comments section below. If you like the story, surely the next video that's appearing on your screen will move you too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our next videos. A huge kiss, and see you in the next story.